Hey folks, Dave Brown here with the New Populace. Thank you again for joining me. So we had the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, meet with Xi Jinping, the president of China, because if you haven't noticed, over the last few years, the relations between China and the United States has deteriorated for several reasons. One being the issue with Taiwan, and really just the general fact that China is rising in power economically and militarily, and the people in Washington, D.C. are starting to get nervous that this will present a challenge to U.S. world power. So the two met and they discussed trying to stabilize the relationship between the two countries. And that is good news. And apparently they made some headway on that issue. Although China in this case, continues to reject having military to military communication. And they cite the reason, as I pointed out in other videos, the fact that we have placed sanctions on the defense minister for China. So in order for the two militaries to start communicating again, these sanctions need to be dropped. And in my opinion, they are ridiculous because back in 2018, we passed a bill saying that anybody who had dealings with the Russian arms industry, we would sanction. Now, of course, in China, they use a lot of Soviet technology. Some of the systems are Soviet-based, so there's obvious reasons why there is a continuing relationship between China and Russia on the military front. And for the United States to step in and go, sorry guys, you can't deal with them anymore because of our issue with Russia is preposterous, especially when we're talking about a country like China that has the second largest military in the world. So I think that should be dropped, those sanctions, so our militaries can communicate. And it's so petty. I think China bought like 35 Su-35, something like that, some missile systems. So it's so minor, yet for some reason the U.S. is persisting in not dropping these sanctions. But this meeting between Xi and Blinken, there's a funny picture going around with Blinken meeting Xi and Xi standing there nice and strong, and Blinken sort of bent over with this constipated look on his face as he's obviously in a subordinate position, and it's not his fault. Sometimes you can get that freeze frame of a video that makes you look bad, but I think it is funny because it does look pretty bad for Blinken to be standing there hunched over in that position. But besides the issue of obviously stabilizing the relations, there was the issue of Taiwan that people are making a big deal of, saying that Blinken has backed down the administration by saying that we respect the one China policy, we the United States, and that is a departure from what Biden said, I think just like about a year ago. But actually, if you listen to what Biden says and what Blinken says, there's actually no difference in their position except for one thing. But let me play what Biden said, and then I want to comment on that, and then I'll play what Blinken said and compare the two. So here's what Biden said.
You didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are.
That's the commitment we made. That's the commitment we made. We are not, look, here's the situation. We agree with a one China policy. We signed on to it, and all the attendant agreements made from there. But the idea that it can be taken by force, just taken by force, is just not appropriate. It will dislocate the entire region and be another action similar to what happened in Ukraine. And so it's a burden that is even stronger.
So Biden says that we would go to war with China if China invaded Taiwan, but that we still respect the one China policy. Now, here is what Blinken just recently said.
On Taiwan, I reiterated the long-standing U.S. one China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We continue to expect the peaceful resolution of cross-strait differences.
So both Biden and Blinken say that they respect and will observe the one China policy. The only difference being that Biden said that we would militarily defend Taiwan if China were to invade. Now, what is the one China policy? Well, in a nutshell, basically, both sides agree that the issue of Taiwan should be settled peacefully through the democratic process, right? And that, it's Taiwanese, and say in 2024, say they vote for somebody that's the pro-China party. Over time, this issue will sort of, work itself out. As far as would the United States defend Taiwan if China invaded, this is where Biden, I think, he's not all there. We all know that. He's missing something mentally. So first of all, we did actually have a treaty with Taiwan. It was called the Sino-American Mutual Defense Treaty that said we would militarily intervene in the case that Taiwan was attacked. That treaty has expired, and now we have the Taiwan Relations Act, which establishes our relationship with Taiwan, but it stopped short of saying that we would militarily intervene if Taiwan were to be attacked. So we have no legal obligation to protect Taiwan. So Taiwan, you should understand that we don't. And will the United States intervene militarily if Taiwan were to be attacked? Well, the War Powers Act says that the President of the United States can't unilaterally just start a war with somebody unless it involves American territories, American soldiers, American bases somewhere. So in my interpretation, under the War Powers Act, he would have to, President Biden, have to go to Congress in order to defend Taiwan militarily, since Taiwan is not part of the United States, not a territory, and so he would not have the power to act unilaterally. Now, that being said, unfortunately, we do know that the presidents in modern times of the United States have a lot of latitude to have commence military action without the approval of Congress. And with somebody like a Joe Biden in power, that's very scary because, as I mentioned before, he's not all there. Something's missing. He's suffering some level of dementia. So that would be a very scary thing. Although I do think the people around him, Blinken, his chief of staff, Mark Milley, Lloyd Austin, they would, they're controlling him to a certain extent as far as actions we're going to take. Although they can't prevent Biden from going in front of a microphone and saying stupid crap, which is why they generally try to limit the time that he is in front of a microphone, because he is prone to saying things that the administration has to walk back later. And that's frankly embarrassing. And another issue with that as well is the fact that the president is the executive branch. He's supposed to be 1/3 of the government. But our deep state has severely limited the president's ability to make decisions without the consent of the military-industrial complex, without the consent of the intelligence state. So I don't believe Biden himself will be able to really unilaterally get us into any trouble unless he's being supported by the people behind the scenes. Now, will the people behind the scenes support military action if China were to invade Taiwan? My thought is yes. I think. Although, looking at what's happening in Ukraine, they have to be having some, getting some cold feet going, our equipment is just getting blown up out there. How well are we going to fare in a war right off the coast of China, thousands of miles away from the United States, where we basically have to project our power through the Navy, our aircraft carriers and battleships, which would be sitting ducks for modern day weaponry. So any war with China off the coast of China and Taiwan would go bad for the United States, which is why, I think that they're trying to get things a little calmer, Antony Blinken. And he later mentioned that so much economic traffic goes through the Taiwan Straits that it would be an economic catastrophe if a war were to break out. And I think for that reason as well, people are getting, I think our allies going, do we really need to make things worse over there right now? We're already dealing with the economic fallout of sanctioning Russia, which is hurting a lot of the European economies. We have a war in Taiwan with the amount of economic materials, that's a bad way to say it, but the amount of flow of goods that go through that area would, if it were to be stopped, would just absolutely obliterate the world economy. And people who are smarter should be recognizing that. And I think those people are recognizing that and wanting things to calm down and maybe not open up this second front with China while we're still dealing with the Russians. So as much as I dislike the Biden administration, if Blinken is trying to calm things down, that is a good thing. And if he's trying to make concessions, that is a good thing. There is zero reason why we should be amplifying or making anything worse right now, especially since we are losing this conflict in Ukraine and Russia is actually getting stronger because of it. So maybe, just maybe, cooler heads are prevailing and people are starting to get a little smarter and thinking a little bit more strategically as far as our actions internationally and try not to provoke China at this moment. So hopefully that's the case. Well, that's it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.